PTO Today has a lot of great free resources on our website, universities you can attend, webinars. I also just mentioned we have our own expo, very similar to this, maybe a little larger, in Conroe. And to all of you Houston friends today, we're offering free registration. So that sign-up sheet's coming around. We also have insurance, financial software to help your treasurer and make that seamless and an easy job. And we also have our fabulous Plus membership, which gives a new group or an existing group all of the resources that it needs to succeed. So if you're interested in that, I know Houston is looking to gauge interest in potential sponsorship opportunities, and we're very pleased to partner with the FACE team to do just that for all of you. So I have two things coming around with that information if you're interested to sign up. Thank you. So we get the question a lot, what's the difference of the different parent groups? So there's a PTO, which we use generically to mean any parent group, whether they're called an HSA or a PTO or a booster. They're an independent group, independent from the school. The money that they raise stays with their group and is spent by their group by the decisions that they decide. You can charge membership dues if you'd like. That it would be up to your group to decide. And if you do, that stays with your group. A PTA is part of a national advocacy organization. You do pay membership dues to become a PTA, and those go to the national, state, and local chapters. However, as a group, anything that you raise, you are independent, stays with your group, other than the membership dues that you pay to the national PTA. And then there's also a school club, but that falls under the umbrella of the school. So all the decisions are determined by the school administrators, and the finances, any funds you collect, are legally belong to the school. Yep.
Does PTO need permission from the school to become active?
Well, I mean, you can become independent and you can form it on your own.
Okay.
Certainly, if you want to serve your school community, you would want them on board, right, because you need to work with them to use their facilities and to do things that they find helpful. So we recommend that you get a good working relationship with your administration, and it should benefit everybody, you know.
What if that's not the case? Because we've had that instance where we've been told that they don't really want a PTO because of the new changes with the NES.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. We have some resources, and I can talk to you about that afterwards. I'll get through a little bit more, but there's some things you can do because having a very active and involved parent group serves the entire community and your school. So the nuts and bolts of a parent group, your mission statement, why you're doing what you're doing, your goals and what you hope to achieve, your bylaws, very important. This is how you run your organization. They're the general rules on how the group runs. Then we'll get into some of the other things. To be an independent organization, you need an employment identification number. They're very easy to get. They're free and online, and you need one of these to open a bank account. And if you later want to follow the process and become a tax-exempt 501c3, you will need an employer identification number. This does not automatically make your group tax exempt or a nonprofit. You become a nonprofit by incorporating at the state level with your Secretary of State, and you become tax exempt at the federal level with the IRS. And I will make all of these slides and additional resources available to you after the conference today. Bank account, when you have an EIN, you can open up a bank account. It's important to look into what the fees are going to be, if there's a maximum number of transactions, a minimum number, if you go below a certain balance. Certainly you want as much money as possible to stay with your group and so that you can use it for the school. You want it to be local because you'll be making trips to the bank, not only for deposits, but to update the officers who have the authorization to sign checks and payments for your group.
How many people are required to open up the bank account?
It depends on your officers. Generally, it's minimum 2, but you can go with 3. We recommend that you have 2 people sign off on every check or payment request. Checks and balances, not just one person who writes those payments. It can be 2 of the officers. It can be a principal and the officer. And those are the ones that you would register with the bank so that they know that these are the people who are authorized to make payments from that account. And I think there's a little bit more on that in a minute. Incorporating at the state level, it makes your group an official nonprofit in the state. And all of the states are a little different. I did include a link for you for what's required in Texas. It's not required, but we strongly recommend it. For one thing, it gives you the corporate shield, which is if you're involved with the PTO, people can't go after your personal assets because of the work that you've done on behalf of the parent group. So that's really a good protection to have. You should incorporate first, and then you can move on to the federal tax exempt step. Because if you do it the other way around, after you incorporate, the IRS is going to look at you as a completely new entity, and you're going to have to do everything all over again. So save yourself some time, incorporate first. It's relatively inexpensive and simple to do, and it sets yourself up for the future of your group. And 501c3, you can incorporate, and you do not have to become a tax-exempt organization with the IRS, or you can do it when you're ready to do so. We recommend it because then donations to you are tax deductible. So any businesses that want to contribute or individuals, it's tax deductible. And also there are many grants out there that are only available to charitable organizations that are formally recognized as a 501c3. You can then go back to your state and be exempt from income tax as well as sales tax. So a lot of benefits to your group. And it just makes you legitimate. You're serious, you have a purpose, the community respects that and will work with you when they know that you have all of your ducks in a row. So for financial controls, it's a shared responsibility. Again, should not fall on just one person. And you want to be transparent. There shouldn't be anything to hide. You're working for the school. Your membership has an absolute right to know what you're raising and where that money's going. And more people are going to be interested in helping volunteer if they know that information. You don't want to be perceived as a clique, or that you're hiding anything, or that you're operating. You're for the whole school. So make that available to your executive board, your membership, and your school administration. And then the school knows what to expect as well.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again, executive board?
Yep, and I will be sending these afterwards. It's important to start with a budget each year. If you're an existing group, you can use the information from past years to figure out what you want to do, what are the expenses involved, and what you need to make it happen. Even if it's a guesstimate, but you'll have some data. And then you make a plan, and your membership votes to approve that budget. So you have your roadmap. You know what you're going to do that year. You don't have to worry about navigating maybe personal agendas because this is what your group has decided to do, and your school can count on that. And if you're a brand new group, just pick a few things that you might want to do. You know, don't go too big when you first start, and take a stab at guesstimating what you might need. Do you need copies for flyers? Do you need a venue? Do you need decorations? And try to navigate that and then adjust as you go. If you're working with a budget, it's easier to plan for things that are unexpected because you can adjust as you go. Maybe you have to, you know, not do the decorations or cut somewhere to make things work. Be very careful with cash at events. You should have one central location where that's collected. If you're having something like a carnival, you'd want to sell tickets, and then the tickets can be redeemed for the games or the food at the concessions. It's very important to have several people, at least two, at the end of the event, count the money together and recount and verify this is the amount that we've collected, sign off on a form, both have them initial it so that it's verified, and give it to the treasurer to deposit. And it should be deposited right away. You shouldn't keep it in your car or under the table at an event or anything like that. You want it to be secure. You should require, I think I mentioned this earlier, 2 signatures on every payment. It's checks and balances. You can even, if you're using hard copy checks, you can even request that a second signature line be printed on those checks so that you're sure to do that every single time. Never, never sign a blank check, even if it's just one of the 2 officers who would be authorizing it. It might sound convenient and save some time, but it's a big no-no. And I just skipped over my paper trail. 10 minutes? Okay. All right. It's important to log all of your transactions in and out. And we recommend keeping forms for that. If someone wants a reimbursement for something, they have to submit the reimbursement form, deposit slips, payment invoices. Everything should be organized so that you have a trail. And these can be scanned and kept digitally, but you need to know what's going on with your finances at all times so that if there's a decision going on, you know exactly where it's going and where you stand and how your group is doing according to your budget. Maybe you're falling short of what you hope to do. Maybe you need to make some adjustments. Again, it's transparency. And you want to report, the treasurer's duty is to reconcile all of the transactions. We recommend, it's really imperative to have the bank statement go to someone other than the treasurer, other than someone who's signing the checks, to take a look at. That's how you can notice if there are any mistakes. Sometimes the bank makes mistakes. Sometimes there might be a large unexplained withdrawal. These are how these types of things are caught. And then it can be passed on to the treasurer to go through every transaction and make sure that it matches up with the bank statement. PTO today has an excellent product finance manager where you can put all of that information in. It's safely stored on the cloud. You can print reports from it, which are good for any kind of forms that you need or reports or your annual audit, which I'll get to. The annual audit. Every year you should have an independent set of eyes looking at your books. It doesn't have to be a paid professional, although you certainly could use one. You can get a volunteer from your parent group to go through the process. PTO today has what that process is, what you should do in an audit, and make sure that everything looks right. Things add up correctly. There isn't anything that doesn't have the proper documentation behind it. It's very important. You can even set an audit committee. Again, these are people who don't have access to the bank account or write checks. These are independent, neutral parties. And finance managers, what I just told you about. We do have a special going on right now for Houston at today's conference for $75 for the year. And there's a free trial, so you can test it out and see if it would work for your group. And again, I'll make all these slides and information available to you. Online payments, that's a huge topic in and of itself, but essentially be very careful because there are costs associated with Square and PayPal, and if it's per transaction, it might not work for your group. But by having electronic payments collected, you might get more money. And it might be good for things like donations or recurring donations or spiritware. But do your research because there's a lot of options out there. And you'll have to remember, someone's going to have the account and the password. Again, you're going to have to put a procedure in place for how electronic payments are used and monitored. Fraud and embezzlement. Unfortunately, I get calls from groups all the time who have had an embezzlement problem. It's devastating, absolutely devastating. If you put sound financial practices in place, it doesn't mean that you don't trust your treasurer. It's to protect everyone for this not to happen. It may not happen now, but it could in the future. If you put these practices in place, you're going to mitigate the risks that are involved. It's important to watch out for this new kind of scary, fraudulent inducement that they have, where someone will actually hack into someone's email, pretend to be the president, and say to the treasurer, cut me a check for this. And if the treasurer does it, they have willingly made this payment, even though they've been tricked into giving up and releasing the funds. So again, another reason why 2 signatures, 2 sign-offs, you should always verify if you get a request like this, that it's the person that you think that it is. If it's an email, I would call them on their cell phone. And that kind of leads to insurance, which we strongly recommend for all groups. You're not covered by the school because if you're an independent organization, you'll host your own events and need to have insurance for that. PTO today offers insurance packages specifically for parent groups. And again, that's one of the services that may be available to you with sponsorship opportunities. If you're interested, you can complete your information. But we really think that it protects your group members, it protects the events that you're having, and all of your assets. Here's some record retention rules. I'll send them to you, but important documents that you need to keep and for how long, and I'll send it to you because I know we're running short on time. Here's that expo that I talked about that we're having in 2 weeks at Conroe, and if you saw the sign-up sheet, we're happy to, yes. I'm sorry?
Is there a list of insurance companies that PTO groups can contact?
Well, you would contact us. We service the program. Our companies are Philadelphia insurance companies. They're all top rated, Tokyo Marine and Access Medical. So we have general liability coverage. We have accident medical coverage. That's in case somebody gets injured at one of your events. Or if there's property damage where you're holding the event, you don't have to just hold events at your school. You can hold them at the local park or elsewhere, and it's covered, except at a home. You can't have it at a personal residence. And then we also have directors and officers coverage, because even if you have that corporate shield to protect your group members' assets, that doesn't mean that someone isn't going to try to sue you for something that went wrong at one of your events. And this will kick in and pay for your lawsuit. So that's really handy. And then crime coverage protects your funds so that if there is theft or embezzlement, then you can reclaim what the losses that way. We also have property insurance if your group owns any stuff that would need its own, like popcorn makers or a bunch of spiritware, or even if you were temporarily taking chocolate bars before you distribute it, and if they all melted, this would cover that too.
Could we see the last slide, please?
I don't know if I can get that. Right here? Yeah. And I will make that available.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yep. And I have a slide which is the main one that I want to send to you with links to all of our great information and much more in depth that I will share with you. So I'll work with HISD FACE to distribute that to all attendees today. Okay, but if there's anything in particular that you might want to discuss, if you didn't sign up on one of the forms, just jot your name down. I'm happy to give you any information on a topic that might help you out. Okay, all right. Any questions before we wrap up? I think we have a minute.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
Of all those things you mentioned, the
Yep.
only thing that kind of got my attention,
Yeah.
my eyes opened up wide, was when you mentioned about an event, like if there's an event and
Yeah.
somebody got hurt, injured,
Yeah.
damaged. When you
Right.
mentioned
Right.
something about covering the loss of insurance, and that's my first time. Is that something new about the insurance for?
Well, I mean, it's a fact. As an independent group, you're not associated with the school, and so it's very likely that your school's insurance is not going to cover you for the events and activities that you hold. It's important to check with your school or district to see if you have any coverage, but most likely you don't. I do know Houston groups that have insurance with us, so I suspect that that's not the case. So
for the PTO clubs to cover the cost of the insurance, would the PTO club raise money to try to cover the cost for that, as that suggested?
Yes, that would be correct. Also, there may be sponsorship opportunities from Houston ISD. So if you sign that form, we'd love to work with them and try to help as many groups as we can. And I think we're done. So do I have to wrap it up? Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming today. I think you need to go to your next session, but please reach out, and I will reach out to you with all of these materials. So call me anytime and let me know what's going on with your groups.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to